Whether you are a fan of this game already or like Final Fantasy, this deck has a few surprises and maybe one or two you won't see coming. Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be going over the new Final Fantasy deck Revival Trance. So if you don't know, I will be going over the commander, the sub-commander, the context of the deck itself, and then giving my thoughts and opinions and then a ranking at the end to see if this is worth buying or not. Now, placeholder, I have played a handful of Final Fantasy games, mainly being 7, 10 and 13, and I've never beaten one, so there's a lot of characters in the Final Fantasy world I do not know, and I'm probably going to get wrong when it comes to their name or anything like that. Unless they are like Cloud or a mainline character from like that era, I have no clue, so I apologize in advance. So now let's go into the actual video itself, breaking it down, starting off with the commander, and the commander of this deck is Terra Herald of Hope for a red, white and black. You got a legendary creature, human wizard warrior, that is a mythic, Trance. At the beginning of combat on your turn, mill 2 cards, Terra gains flying until end of turn. Whenever Terra deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2. When you do, return target creature card with power 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and choose a 3/3. I know nothing about this character, so I don't know if they're good or if they're bad. However, this seems to be a kind of graveyard recursion deck and self-mill, which is weird because there's usually green when it comes to this, so I don't know why green's not in here. Maybe because the character has nothing to do with that type of nature and stuff like that. But these colours do seem quite good. Red is really good for discarding stuff and then playing stuff later on, and if you then decide to not play it then, you'll be able to get it back with her ability. White has Suntying. I can put money on without looking at this deck that Suntying is going to be in this deck. That's plain and simple. Then there's black cards that are really good at getting rid of things and reanimating things. So I see the colours ready and be good for this already. I can see a lot of graveyard recursion or a lot of things that mill or a lot of things that they will go to the graveyard and they'll be able to be cast later on. I say this is going to be a very creature heavy deck, mainly because it's focusing on creatures. Now my only worry is that there's going to be kind of high level powered. Mainly I'll be thinking of low powered 3 or less, but again, when it comes to these decks, they don't really hard focus on that, so there could be 4 or plus cost creatures, and a fair few of them. But now that we've gone over the commander, let's go over the sub-commander of the deck, and the sub-commander is Celis Rune Knight. For 1 generic, a red, a white and a black, you get a legendary creature, human wizard knight, that is a mythic. When Celis enters, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards plus 1. Whenever 1 or more other creatures you control enter, if 1 or more of them entered from the graveyard or cast from the graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and it is a 4/4. Not gonna lie, I prefer this than the commander, but that's just more my playstyle. Be able to reanimate things, there's a lot of cards that you're able to cast, especially in black, from your graveyard, and the fact that everything gets a +1/+1 is really powerful. If you play your own curve and you're playing 2 or 3 creatures per turn from your graveyard because you discarded them at the start of your turn, she's getting +2/+3 each turn. Then never mind putting in cards that like give benefits with 1/1 counters or additional benefits with 1/1 counters and stuff. So again, I can see this, if someone got their hands on it, being a very powerful deck. But because this is a precon with cards for both commander and sub-commander, I will say it will be a little bit weaker, but again, precons are supposed to be like that. So now let's go on to the deck itself, starting off with the creatures in there. When it comes to the creatures of the deck, there's 36 of them, but there's only like maybe 28, 25 or something like that I want to talk about that are really, really good. I had a quick look through this and actually seen a fair few good cards, but you get creatures just like Siren Vengeful Samurai, General Leo Christoph, Interceptor Shadowhound, Shadow Mysterious Assassin, Segfried Famed Swordsman, Ghoul Feral Youth, Go-Go Mysterious Mine, Sabin Master Monk, Stragoan Realm, Summon, Esper Valgarmada, Argo Raging Yeti, Bannon the Returning Leader, Edgar Master Machinist, Kefka Dancing Mad, Locke Treasure Hunter, Mog Moogle Warrior, Setzer Wandering Gambler, The Warring Tride, Sun Titan, Arch-themed of Depravity, Sepulchral Primordial, Combustible Gearhulk, Flayer of the Hatehound, Rune Grinder, Priest of the Fell Rites, and Solemn Ciliacrium. So, I know one Final Fantasy character, and I'm not sure if this is one. I know the Moguls, the little white fur cats with the little ball string from their heads, and that is it. I don't know any other from here. When I first started looking through these cards, I thought it would actually be good with the Wooburg Assassin's Creed card, or the card that lets you win if you've attacked with an assassin or something like that, that's popping someone out, or is it Samurai? Can't remember which one. A lot of the cards, I didn't have a clue, read through them, and went, this is great for the deck, or roughly what it would be good for the deck. My biggest downside, and it's more, again, I will probably have to make a separate video on it, and I have made a video on this subject before, that Magic the Gathering is more going on this Universes Beyond and being less and less Magic, and I do find that every single Final Fantasy card having 2 or 3 arts, mainly if we even count the borderless one or the extended borders, is fine. But every single Magic the Gathering card in this deck only got, it did get a new art, but it didn't get an extended version as well, which in my eyes is more of a, I can see their plan for going forwards, that it's going to be less and less Magic and more Universes Beyond, which I'm not the biggest fan on, and I have made a video on that before. Plus also saying it now, the fact that they got rid of one set this year and moved it to next year, and it was a Magic the Gathering set, is kind of also another kind of red flag for me. But the creature lineup in general is very strong. There are solid value engines when it comes to the creatures in this deck, but it is held by a high mana curve. A lot of these creatures are not 3 mana less. But I can see this being a potential to start a very strong deck yourself, getting rid of a few cards, and I also said Sun Titan was going to be in this. Sun Titan's in every single deck they build. But next we are on the spells of the deck. If you don't know what spells are, it's the instant and sorceries. There's 15 of them in this deck, but the ones I want to mention are Esper to Mogsit, Bedevil, Rejoin the Fight, Snort, Tragic Arrogance, Reanimate, Rise of the Dark Realms, Legion of Ashes, Ruminous Ultimatum. So me joking earlier on that Reanimate is going to be in this deck. Usually I just use Reanimate as the best kind of card to put something in your graveyard onto the field. I didn't think they were going to reprint it in this deck, not going to lie. So that was a nice little kind of, not Easter egg thing there, but I was happy that I kind of said it and it wasn't here. Same with the Sun Titan. I do think the instant and sorceries are going to be probably one of the weakest points of this deck, but I do find a lot of the cards in here are shockingly actually better than I thought and have good really synergy with the deck, and the big ones being Rise of the Dark Realms, Reanimate and Ruminous Ultimatum was big hits that I found great to be in this deck. So now one thing I do want to mention, and this is a first. We're going on to the enchantments of this deck. When it comes to enchantments, I find enchantments to be one of the strongest cards in the game. Creatures are more powerful and there is more variations of them. However, when it comes to getting rid of them, it's easier than enchantments. Enchantments are usually the cards I put in if there is a creature version, mainly because it's going to be hard to get rid of if I put the creature version in instead. So enchantments are my favourite card type. Even though there's less of them, they're harder to get rid of and can be very, very powerful. And if you have a very powerful enchantment, people find it difficult to get rid of it. Where the creature, they can get rid of it with ease. There is a total of 0 enchantments in a pre-con. I'm fine if someone built their own deck and then put no enchantments in it because there's something in it. I have a deck myself that gets rid of artifacts and I have no artifacts in the deck. That makes sense. But having a pre-con with 0 enchantments in it, even though I'm pretty sure there is cards that let you bring stuff from the graveyard each turn, there's stuff that gives you benefits from putting stuff in your graveyard, and there is a lot of especially black enchantments that are very powerful that will go well in this. Even with bringing stuff back, I know there's the one that lets you bring back something from a graveyard each turn and it's like 8 mana. that card would have been great. If there's any enchantments in here that you thought would be in this deck, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm quite disappointed that there is a total of 0. But now that that is out of the way, let's go on to artifacts. When it comes to artifacts, there is a total of 12, but 7 of them are mana rocks, so I don't want to kind of go through them. But there are a few I do, and they are Coin of Fate, the Falcon Airship Restored, and Key to the City. So this makes more sense why the artifacts are slightly better than usual, and the instant and sorcery is better than usual because there's no enchantments. Not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of vehicles, but I can see them going more and more into vehicles. They just released a new rule that vehicles can also now be your commander, which I'm not complaining about. I do think it is a cool concept and will help the game grow even more. I do think this artifact or this artifact vehicle is quite good, but my main focus will be on the other cards. I do find Key to the City to be a very powerful card, but it depends on how you use it. It doesn't go in every deck, but I do think this deck is right for it. And then finally, usually the part that I dread, the lands. When it comes to this, there's 37 in total, but you get lands just like Clifftop Retreat, Desolate Mire, Dragon Skull Summit, Fetid Heath, Forge Bounding Ruins, Furry Calm Snarl, Graven Curry, High Market, Isolated Chapel, Rugged Prairie, Shadow Blood Ridge, Shrine Shadow Snarl, Smothering Marsh, Sun Scorched Divide. Now I'm not sure if this is a thing because there's no enchantments that they made the lands better. Usually when it comes to this, and I've made multiple videos, putting filter lands is good, especially in these type of things. I say for every colour added on after 2, you add 1 on. So for example, if you have a 2 colour deck, no filters to 1 filter is fine. Having a 3 colour deck, having 1 to 2 filters is fine, and then for 4 colours, -1, 2 to 3, and then for a Wilburg having 3 to 4 is fine. This has 3. Not complaining, that is really good. That is the direction I'm going, but I'm not sure if they're doing that because of their they have like a little balance sheet and they try and make a balance, and then with no enchantments they're like, okay, we need to make everything else that's slightly a bit better. And lands, this is probably one or very handful of times that the land base is good. I like it. There's not much change you have to do. It has cards that work well with the deck with high mark and stuff like that, and then there is the filter lands that work great. I love this already, and there's not much change I would do with the lands. To be honest, I think just changing the rest of the deck would be fine on its own. But now my thoughts and opinions on this deck as a whole. I'm not gonna lie, I think it's gonna be difficult to make this amazing or great, mainly because of how difficult it is with the IPs and stuff. They have to have a certain amount of characters, I assume, from the games into the deck. So having them and what they do is going to be difficult. Then they have to kind of balance that with balancing their own IP at the same time, while also doing that, balancing a good deck where a commander and sub-commander works well together with the creatures, enchantments and stuff like that in the deck. So it is hard for them to build. However, putting in Sun Titan again in every single white egg, this one does make sense because it's graveyard recursion, so this is the one that I would give more leeway on. I do find a lot of the cards are either really solid or bad. Another thing I don't like is that anything that's Final Fantasy gets a actual golden like treatment thing compared to its own IP. Again, with the getting extended border cards and different art, but not doing it for their own stuff. I know there is 2 variations of the deck. There's like pretty much the broke version and the expensive version, so I'm not sure if the art is in the extended art or different art is in the expensive one. However, I'm not the biggest fan of it. And then having a deck with no enchantments in is not good at all in my opinion. I do think it is very crammed for a short thing between the Final Fantasy stuff need to be done and then the deck itself need to be done. I find that they haven't fully balanced out how to make a good pre-con deck. They make good pre-con decks, but not amazing pre-con decks, which is fine. So I find it difficult with a second thing added on. The best way I can put it in is if there is someone that is constantly busy putting play on, and then someone asks them to do everything else then lowers, in my opinion. However, I can see Final Fantasy players buying this, but in fairness that's going to be to all of it, and there's probably going to be a lot of new players that only buy this because they're huge into Final Fantasy, which again is a fine thing. But when it comes to my opinion of this deck, I'm basing it on kind of the cards' abilities, not the characters themselves, so it's not to do with Final Fantasy. The way they're treating kind of their own IP stuff, the way the deck is built and how powerful it can be straight off the bat, how many changes or what changes need to be done, and stuff like that. So the fact that the biggest and best thing about this deck is the lands shows where I'm probably aiming for this. But my overall grade for this is 6.8 out of 10. So if you think I've graded it wrong or you have a different opinion, let me know in the comments down below of what you would give it out of 10. If I've missed anything or anything like that, or wanted me to go over stuff, or if there's any synergy or cards that you think would go great in this deck, let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that annoying YouTubey stuff we always ask for. And as always, if you like this video, I have last week's video here, a playlist of Is It Worth It stuff here, and a subscribe button here. I'll be going over each deck each week, so I'll see you next week in the second deck.